So, hello once again. One of the students can just unmute and let me know I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening once more. I hope you've had a good day and a good week so far. So, I'll go right ahead and introduce today's topic as well as our mentor. So, we'll be covering QA, quality assurance, and with us is Thomas Adika, who is a QA engineer at Serianu. He does quality assurance for the cybersecurity tools that they use for their clients. He's also incorporated AI in some of the tests he does for the products they're testing. So he'll tell us more about himself, what he does, and demystify QA for us, and how you can learn the particular skills that the field is looking for. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Thomas, for agreeing to mentor us today. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Hope. Good evening, everyone. I hope you see me. Is my screen visible? Okay. So my name is Thomas Adika. I am a QA at Seriano, and I basically do quality assurance for the cybersecurity tools that we use, be it server-side tools or network tools or applications. I'm passionate about building reliable and secure systems. I'm also experienced in automated testing with using tools like Playwright, Selenium, Cypress. They all work pretty much the same and achieve the same thing. So let's move to the agenda. So I'd like to start with a quick analogy before I get into the details. And I'll also encourage questions per slide. So if you have any question before I move to the next slide, just tell me. So basically, think of QA like a group of people building a house or an apartment block. And the contract says that you're going to be paid a certain amount of money, let's say 1 million shillings, to build exactly what the architect drew out. So the architect talked to the person who wants the house is built, and then now they give it to my team. So now the team builds the apartment block, and we haven't been paid yet. So for us to be paid, the client needs to come see the houses and make sure that they're okay. So that's where now I come in, quality assurance. So I'll come check if the client wanted cables for Wi-Fi for all of the houses. I'll make sure there are cables for Wi-Fi for all of the houses. If there are none, I'll document that on a book. And then if you wanted 10 windows per apartment, if there are 10 windows, that's okay. If there are 9, that's not okay. So if the client also wanted a rooftop and we didn't put a rooftop, then I have to document that. And then at the end of the day, I come to my team, then I tell them this is what you've done, and this is what you haven't done. And then I make sure they fix them. And then after they fix them, we get the 1 million because that's what the contract says. So now, in reality, it's not a house, it's an application, it can be a system, it can be anything electronic. that's being used in my case, cybersecurity, or a bank or a supermarket. So your job is to, let's say, create a website for this company, and this company specifies exactly what they want on the contract. So now the developers, product managers, all of them do their thing. And then now me, I come and check. Remember the analogy for me checking if there are cables for internet, if there are cables for electricity, etc. That's exactly what QA is, if I put it in a way for you to understand. So now what I'll be talking about is how to maneuver as a QA. So are there any questions in relation to that? I hope you all understood the analogy. So there'll be introduction to the fundamentals, the role of a QA, key testing methodologies, unit testing, after you test one component. Integration testing, things like that. And then also starting and growing a career in QA and essential tools, best practices, and then Q&A, final thoughts. And then I'll show you a short demo of how I use AI to do my QA tasks. So I'll go to the next slide. So like we said, QA is a systematic process to ensure software meets quality standards. So normally when you're creating software, you're given something called requirements that comes from either the client, that comes from the client actually, and then the client talks to the product owner. And then the product owner breaks down what the client is saying into tech team English. So that's not a real word, but like basically what that means, it's requirements that you need to build what you've been told to build. But now it's dissected in a way that you can understand it in terms of front end and back end. So those things are normally stated. So me, I have to make sure that those things are met or a QA. And then obviously there's prevention. So when you do QA, you're preventing bugs. Bugs are what cost companies money. So let's say like that time there was a bug with Cloudflare and the bug was a 500 error. 500 error means something to do with the backend. And that time you guys couldn't access ChatGPT. But if, let's say it was tested before they released that feature, then that wouldn't happen. And then obviously detection, continuous improvement. So that means that every time new code is pushed, it's tested. So you don't just test once a year, you test like once a day, I'd say. And then QA is process oriented, so it's an actual job role because every day people are writing code, and every day someone is doing git push. And when you do git push, you might break the code that's already there. But if I test it on my side before you push it to production, it's better off. Quality control is more like coming to inspect. Rather, QA, you work with the team. So we focus on preventing defects. Those are bugs. Bugs is a defect in a system. So that can be, if you click on this button, nothing happens, etc. Or if you have a TV like Vitram, if you try to use Netflix, you won't be able to use Netflix. So that's a bug for Vitram. So those are bugs. And then they're both essential for delivering high quality software. Any question up to that? this is, let's say, what a day in the life looks like. So let's say I get to the office. I run my tests maybe in the morning. Some of them pass, some of them fail. Then I have to investigate the ones that failed to see why they failed. Sometimes they fail because maybe when you're navigating to a page, it timed out, meaning that your page took like 5 seconds to load and my test case was expecting 3 seconds. So that's what flaky tests are. So you have to deal with those. So you can imagine you have like 100 tests, but that's where AI comes in, and I'll show you later. And then obviously there's tight deadlines and changing requirements. So deadlines, the client wants this feature by next week, but you guys are planning to finish it in 2 months. So you have to change what you're doing. Requirements are what I said from the product owner. So basically it's breaking down what a client has said into tech English. And then obviously you have to balance between manual and automated testing. Because sometimes you have to check something quickly or you have to maybe recreate a bug. Let's say your automated test got a bug, you have to recreate it manually. So this includes test planning, execution, and reporting. This is basically if you want to test the login feature. So you plan to test the login feature, and then execution and reporting. So execution, you make sure you test a successful login, a login with a bad password, a login with the wrong password, a login with no password. And then obviously you have to triage the bugs. People use things like Notion, Jira, and then test automation, obviously. Uh, so let's go to reliability. So QA is basically your first line of defense. So if you have tests already set up before you release something, you don't have to incur the cost of being called by your client and being told that this feature doesn't work and they need it so that the database can be up or so that a certain transaction can happen so that maybe some insurance is given out. So if that happens for a day, maybe the client will lose a lot of money. But if you catch it normally during development, you end up losing little to no money. Security testing, that's basically penetration testing or blue hat testing, whereby there's also red hat and blue hat. So red hat is when you become the attacker and try to exploit the system, and then blue hat is when you try to protect the system. So you can think of that as the analogy for the house, having a fence around the house, and then a red hat is trying to break down the fence and enter and maybe get to the fourth floor. And then the blue hat is the watchman and maybe the dogs and the CCTV. So like ways you can prevent such attacks from happening. For example, an SQL injection on the login page. The place for the email, maybe I can put a command like drop user table. And if it goes through, that means that I can delete. Oh, I shouldn't be telling you that. But yeah, things like that. But that's how basically you test. You'll have to do the things like SQL injections, API. You have to secure the APIs because it's running on the internet. So you don't want someone to cut through or cut in between what you're sending between the server and the front end. And then obviously there's compliance testing to meet regulatory requirements, accessibility testing, and more. The key testing methodologies with manual testing. That's when you go clicking around. Takes a lot of time. I have to do it, but I'm not a big fan. And then there's automated testing. This is one that I like, where you can have unit tests. That's when you test like one module like this. And then integration. Let's say if I change this name from end to end to new tests. I have to test to see whether everything else works after I've changed something, and then end-to-end testing. Sorry. And then there's obviously performance testing. That's when you test basically your APIs and how they handle traffic. So you can simulate one user, 100 users, 10 users, all hitting the same endpoint. So maybe that endpoint can be the login. And then security testing, the one that we already talked about. And then API testing. So I have a question. Which test type would be your first line of defense for catching bugs? If you answer, there's a prize. I'll share with you my LinkedIn. Anyone?
Hi, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Which testing type? So we've talked about these tests, these ones up here. Which testing type should be your first line of defense for catching bugs? Remember, there's a prize. Get access to my LinkedIn. End-to-end test, unit test, manual, performance test.
Can I try?
Yeah, you can try. Anyone.
Unit
Can take
tests.
unit test. Okay. Any other answer?
I have a couple of hands. Collins, then Peter.
Collins.
Guys, you can speak, not necessarily in the order of the hands. Yeah, Kezia.
I'd say unit test as well.
Okay. Peter.
I also think it's the unit test.
Okay.
Okay. So it is unit test. So unit tests go even, you can even stretch unit tests. In fact, it's mandatory. If you're a developer, remember this. It's mandatory that when you write code, you write corresponding unit tests. So if you're a front-end developer, if you create a page, you write unit tests for that page. Backend developers, the same. So unit tests, I can do them as a QA, and also the dev team can have them. And then you can maybe create a GitHub action workflow that says that if these unit tests from the developer don't pass, then he can't push. So yes, unit test. And then QA in modern software development, Agile. Agile is a form of developing software with a team with not more than 10 people, I believe. Yes, it's 10 people. And you develop the software in small chunks. So that's just how I'm going to explain it. But the proper explanation is obviously on the internet, but if you just want to understand it. So basically, Agile QA integrated into the sprints. It's not an afterthought. So every time, let's say we start a sprint, let's say we have 4 sprints. The first sprint is login page. The second one is settings page. The third one is blog page. And then each sprint lasts 1 week. So when you're preparing for the sprint, I'll be involved in the meeting so that I can prepare with my test cases, and then I make sure I test throughout the sprint. And then CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So that's automating testing in pipelines. Your pipelines are basically what you use to automatically deploy on your production test server or your development server. And then shift left testing is basically testing early, so like unit tests. And then DevOps culture, that's basically me working with the DevOps. And then test-driven development, I write tests first. So I don't write tests before the feature is finished. I write them at the beginning of the week. Peter, you had a question? You have your hand up. And then as a QA, it's also in cybersecurity, QA is not just about finding bugs. It's about finding vulnerabilities before the bad actors do. So bad actors are the red hat people. So you need to know at least the top 10 vulnerabilities under OWASP. So you can Google that. And then security focused test planning and execution. Secure code review, collaboration. So that's unit tests or using code scanning tools or container scanning tools for Docker. Then incident response and regression testing after new features have been added. Then starting and growing your career in QA. Let me just share another file. I hope the files that I'm sharing, you're able to send them to the chat.
Yeah, the link that you shared.
The link and then another file related to starting and growing a career in QA.
Okay, so yeah, I can share that. The link is under Q&A. So anything I'm sharing here is under Q&A. That's what's accessible with the whole team.
Oh. So you can check it. So there's junior QA engineer. That's basically manual testing, bug reporting, learning tools, like, and then test automation. That's when you become a mid-level engineer. And then senior QA engineer. When the business requirements are being done, you're also there. You're able to maybe also help plan because you're able to look at the future and see what will happen. And then QA lead manager. So for this, I believe in not reinventing the wheel. So I can give you the resource that I use. It's called roadmap.sh. So I can share this link with you. So over here, you can see the thing that you need to learn in order for you to become a QA. I can send the link and then you can be looking at it in the meantime. And, obviously the tools that you can be using is Playwright by Microsoft, Selenium with Jira, Postman, Git. That's it's not the same as GitHub. Git is the one that you use on your terminal or PowerShell, and then Jenkins or GitHub Actions. So there's also best practices which we always encourage to follow. So normally they keep changing, so you can always keep Googling. So writing clear and reproducible bug reports. This is very important so that when you report a bug and then the developer, as a QA in the office, just in the office, the developers are not your best friends. You kind of bother them, but that's just in the office. Outside the office, you get the friends. So when you create a bug and you're not able to explain how you got to that bug, the developer can just say, then that's not a bug if we can't recreate it. And then maybe that bug will occur again later down in the line. So if you create reproducible bugs, and then let's say that bug, you basically put the steps to reproduce, even if the developer reads it, he or she will be able to understand. And then automate what's repetitive. I'll be showing you that in a bit. And then maintain your tests with like production code. So this involves flaky tests. Also, you need to make sure that when someone makes a change, your test cases change with it so that they don't fail. And then communicate proactively with your team, stay curious, and document your processes. So here's some key takeaways. QA is about prevention, not just detection. Automation is powerful, which is true. Security testing is essential. Career growth takes continuous learning. That's why I've shared that link with you for roadmap. The right tools make a huge difference. Like I remember when I was starting, I tested with around 5 tools until I settled with 2 or 3 of them, or one that I mostly use, and then another one that I use once in a while. And then communication is important so that you can be able to explain the bugs. I think I'll take any questions before I show you how I use AI in testing in my day-to-day. So any questions up to them? Yes, Brian.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm trying to access the link. I'm unable to. I don't know. Maybe you can repeat. You can reshare.
Which one?
The link for the roadmap, kindly.
Oh. Okay. You shared. Have you shared? Under Thomas Adika.
Now, shared under Thomas Adika. Let me check.
On Q&A.
Okay. Thank you, Adika.
Dennis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want you to clarify something. In test-driven development, did you say that it's the developer's role to write the test, or is it the responsibility of the quality assurance person to write the tests?
It's it's everyone's responsibility to test. So what that means is the developer will write unit tests for their code. And then the QA will write tests also for the system. So let's say if they want to introduce a new feature, maybe for uploading an image, on their code base, they need to have a folder called tests, and then they need to have tests for uploading image. So they'll have files inside there for testing. And then we'll also have files for testing, uploading the image. So both developers and QA need to test. But if you test as a developer, the testing becomes better.
Okay,
So it's
understood.
Jeremiah.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Can't really hear you. Sylvia?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, what is the difference between verification and validation in QA
Verification, validation.
and validation?
Uh, let's say we don't really use those terms. Let's say validation maybe is the process of actively testing the system, let's say maybe throughout the week or throughout the month or throughout the sprint that's allocated. So that's basically every day when you go to work, you validate that the login system works or the blog posts work. And then you said verification. Verification probably would be, let's say, the product owner verifying that this works before they go for a demo, or this works on production after we release a feature.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Maybe just I would like to ask about the functional testing, because I understand that QA draws the line between functional testing and also security testing, right? So, how do QA add any security feature or value without becoming a security engineer or a software developer? How can it add value in terms of functional testing and also the security testing?
The question is, how can a QA add value in terms of functional and security testing?
Testing and security testing, because I know as far as QA is concerned, it is more of looking into what exactly the scope of that system and also the code wise. So how does it contribute to functional testing and the security testing?
So a QA would basically, when you get to level, let's say level Mid-level, a QA would have, that's basic. Okay, unless your company is at a stage where they can afford like a security company to do security audits. For example, Serianu. If you're a small business, if you have a QA, they'd have to learn both functional and security testing. This includes VAPTs, pen testing, testing DBs. So as you can see over here, test automation, CI/CD. So this CI/CD in here also, you can have tests for your APIs, you can have tests for your databases, you can have tests for security, tests for SQL injections. So basically, you'd end up having to learn those test types. There are around 9 test types, around 9 of them, also including false positive tests, negative tests, etc. So you'd have to end up learning it.
That is well noted.
Alex?
Yes, good evening. I hope I'm audible. And so my question is as a a, a quality assurance, how do you achieve error detection maybe in a software? I mean, maybe someone was trying to perform an SQL injection or other malicious activities. How do you achieve to ensure that your system can detect and report that particular incidence? And also, how do you achieve the fault tolerance in that particular software to reduce the downtime and ensure the continuity of operations? And then finally, maybe someone aspiring to start a career in penetration testing. Can you maybe share with us some roadmaps or a guideline on how to proceed? Yeah.
So I'll answer the first one for, let's say you want to do a career in penetration testing. So the first, that's called, is infra risk. Risk assessment. So that means you'd work under the risk team. VAPTs, penetration tests fall under VAPTs. So if you if you look at this website, I think you can find something close to that, cybersecurity there. So step number 1, pay attention to all of the cyber shuja classes. The people who are teaching you are actually working in the field. Then you can come, you don't have to do even just this one, but you can start with this cybersecurity expert and then go through it. It's really easy to go through. You just click, you can read this, you can read the small bit. And then if you're told to use Hack the Box, just go use Hack the Box. Remember, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then this can even be used as a bargain on your CV. You can say that I can do, I know about computer hardware components, you know about Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. You'll find that if you download something like Kali Linux, you'll have an application just for Bluetooth, an application just for Wi-Fi. So you'll be able to bargain and say that I've been able to do all of these, and this is proof and then you show them your GitHub, etc. The second question, what was the second question?
Oh, it
Kindly.
was it was about how do you achieve detection in systems.
You
Yeah.
have to automate your tests. So if you automate your tests, you're able to catch bugs and defects early. So if you have tests that are run when someone pushes from develop to testing, and then you also have tests that are run between testing and production, you're able to catch the defects. So if you can do manual testing, but if you have them automated, you have a higher chance of catching them.
All right.
So you have around 10 minutes left. So I just wanted to do a quick demo of how I use QA, how I use AI in QA. So I'll be able to answer your question, Rogers, in terms of detecting. So this is not a website for slides. So for the demo, we're going to test this website. So this is a front end that I created like 30 minutes before this presentation. So as a QA, you'll end up learning how to do back end and front end, because again, you have to be able to defend your bugs. So if I know how Postgres database works and what a 500 error means, maybe it says that null, no, maybe it says ID is equals to undefined, and then I write that in my bug, I have a better chance of getting my developer to fix it. So I'm able to do front end and back end. So I use something called Playwright. And so I've shared this repository. I've pushed and made some changes to this repository. So it's the GitHub repo that I shared. So automating tests, how do you automate tests? You use Playwright. So for example, I have Playwright over here, and this is my test file. This is TypeScript. I won't explain to you the code. Maybe you can try reading the comments. Basically, this is a test type that I want to run, which is a smoke test. Let's see what else I have. I have unit tests, etc, etc. So I can run these tests. Instead of doing manual tests, I can run these tests. And Playwright will automatically test for me. So as you can see, this test over here. So I think I'm running around 36. Oh yeah, I'm running 36 tests in parallel. So each test is checking for something. It's maybe checking for a word. Be checking for a certain page. It should take about 2 minutes. And then I think I made one of them fail purposefully. Hopefully I'll be able to fix it. So that's where my AI now comes in. So I have one that have failed. Yes, thank you. About to finish. So this is basically a test suite for testing the whole application that I'm using, this app. So I have the code and I'm able to write the test cases. So it's basically testing for me all of these buttons and checking to see if, let's say, pro tips is there. If I click on tools, is there master one, TC? So it's finished. So you see, 32 of them have passed, and then I have 4 that have failed. Okay, so it's this one. Oh man, I have 3. Okay. So this one has failed. So what I'll do is I'll just come here. So the app that I'm using, you can use VS Code, but I'm using an IDE called Casa. Casa is it's VS Code on VS Code Pro Max. So, yes. Just I no, I don't encourage that. So I'll paste my error somewhere. Let me paste it here. MD is Markdown file. Markdown is the language for AI. So that's the first error that we got. That's the first error that we got. And then we have this one. So hopefully it should do this in like 2 minutes. Hopefully. Let's fix 2 errors because I don't want it to take long. Error.md. So you have 2 options. You can either go click and try to find the error and recreate it yourself. That's by going to Chrome, clicking on inspect, and then maybe record, or you follow the network, or you follow it's too much work for me, or it's too much work for, well, specifically me. So me, I cheat, I use AI. So I'll take the exact error. Hopefully it fixes this. Sometimes it also hallucinates. And then I'll take the file, and then I'll tell it debug. So if things go well, it's supposed to call Playwright by itself and then go check and test. So Playwright, there's this concept called MCPs, Model Context Protocol, whereby it allows LLMs like ChatGPT and Grok and GitHub Copilot to interact with real-world applications. So before you had to maybe, let's say if you want to look at something on Jira, let's say you want to look at something on Jira, you'd have to maybe go and copy the whole thing. It's fine. You'd have to go copy the whole thing from the website and then paste it into your chat. But if you use an MCP, like me, I have that Atlassian MCP, which is for Jira, I can tell it, fetch for me all of the test cases for login. And then it fetches for me, then I tell it to run all of them using Playwright. So that's basically what an MCP is. So I have three main MCPs. I have a lot, but I have Playwright, I have Jira, and I have one called Supermemory. Supermemory is where, for context, if you're uploading a file, the AI has to write Python to break down the file. But if you use Supermemory, you can store it as vectors. So it's an MCP where you can just have like quick memory for your chat. So that when you start a new chat from Grok or ChatGPT or anywhere, cloud, if you have your Supermemory MCP on either one of them, you can still have the same context on a different chat. So it's claiming that it fixed it. Let's see. So it navigated. So I'm guessing this is the page with an error. So let's see. Oh, fixed it. Thought it was going to fail. Believe in yourself, guys. Believe in yourself. This one should work. Yes. So that's taken 2 minutes. So there I've debugged 2 test cases. And then after I debug them, now I can push them to GitHub. I commit, sync changes. So let's see. So that's how I use Playwright to, so me I settled on one tool. There's Cypress, there's Selenium, there's one called Test Sigma, especially if you're beginning. Test Sigma is a good one to use. Me I settled on Playwright. It's probably the most complicated one to use. But with time, I ended up understanding JavaScript and TypeScript. So it's not hard for me to read these things. Okay, so yeah, and then you can come up with a report. This report is what you can upload. Um, so I'll just show you an example. So let's say if I find a test that fails, and it fails not because of me, which means a flaky test, I can create a bug from my chatbot. So I think now it's going to create it. It's created it. Then I've got a notification. So here it's created 7:59 p.m. Here's the bug. So I use MCPs to do the repetitive stuff. So I think I can bring the session to an end. Any questions before we end? I'll share. So if anyone wants to reach out about the demo, clone the demo, I'll send you my email, and then I'll send you my email and my LinkedIn. Then you can email me either your GitHub username so that I can see any changes that you've made or any questions. Inside that repository, so the slides that I used, well, what's it called? The website that I created, the plan for the website is here. So you can see the slides for what I did, what we talked about. Also added a section for explanation. Yeah, so you can also have a look at these. And then that PDF for roadmap, it's also here, you can have a look at it. And then I've left you some free test cases because people pay for these. So I've given you one for demo and one for example spec. This one for demo won't work unless if you collaborate on the repository, I'll send you the code for the front end and then I'll show you how to run it. Yeah, and then for people who use Linux, this is what you'll need for Playwright. For people who use Windows, this is what you'll run on your PowerShell. So I think that's it from me. If there are no questions, we can move back to Hope.
Thank you so much, Thomas. So I see a question on Q&A from Arnold. He's asking, is it ethical to have company code and upload it on AI for manipulation and adjustments, in brackets, entire files?
No, it's not, unless you have the premium package. So if you have the premium package, you can always tell that company to not use your data. But if you're using free tier, avoid it. Avoid it because it will be used as data to be training the AI, and then maybe 6 months down the line, they'll know something. Someone can type into ChatGPT a question about your company and get the answers. So if you're paying the premium version, you can do it. Just make sure you put privacy. But if you're using the free tier version, that will be tricky.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
What about if you can use Copilot instead of ChatGPT?
To do what exactly? Pardon the question. I'm asking to do like what exactly, to test or?
I think that was Rogers. Rogers, you can walk us through your thought process. Sawa.
You can use VS Code. It also has. Oh, I didn't even know it has this. But yeah, you can use VS Code to also do that. I think the MCPs are under extensions. For me, obviously, I have my main ones, Atlassian and Playwright and Super Memory. So yes, you can use it.
Okay, thank you. So last question here on the Q&A from Jack. He's saying you've talked about PowerShell and CMD. What of those using Terminal?
Terminal is Linux.
I believe so.
So if you're using Linux, you'll use this .sh. You'll use the bash script. So you'll just go to your terminal and then you'll do gmod, but I shouldn't be giving you all the simple. Yeah, shift plus X and then whatever the name of that thing is, install direct.sh. That means I have the rights to run it, and then it should install. So me, if I install, that will mean I'm installing again. caution. Oh.
Okay, I believe that was the last one. Any other questions? Okay. So we've officially closed Q&A. Maybe Thomas, before we close the session, any parting advice, parting shots for the students and those venturing into this?
Use this website as your Bible, not Bible, as your direction. Like use it to the letter. Like use it to the letter. Learn Oracle, learn test prioritization, learn functional testing, learn automated testing. Just make sure you go down all the way. And then when you get to the end, you should be pretty much golden. So use this website, the link that I've shared with you guys. Do
Thank
another
you.
AI. So for me, I think that's my parting shot. And then also you can reach out to me via email, make your changes, push your branch. I'll get it over here to pull requests. Then I'll see if I can pull your code, and then I'll be able to collaborate with you. So you can always email. I've shared my email over there also. I think that's it for me. Hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas. Then to the team, the recording will be up on the Cybersecurity YouTube page, so feel free to look at that. And then I'll share the resources shared here under a folder for the mentorship sessions, so you can always look at that. As usual, I always advise later on, sit down with the recording, listening, try to practice what is taught by each mentor here, and yeah, make the best out of these sessions. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely night.
Good night, everyone. Hello, no.